economic development. Shout out to Todd, who totally worked so hard on that. And it was such an amazing, unexpected boost. As a small business owner who'd primarily worked online, I just kind of didn't think grants were a real thing, because I was like, oh, there's a bajillion people. And when I learned about a local grant from the city, and then I went through the process, the team was so great about being so communicative, because it took several months because it needed to go through the proper channels. And when I found out I was the recipient, I was like, I felt so supported. I felt so invested in by Salt Lake City, and I felt so lucky. And it was just a huge boost. And I'm so grateful.
Yay. You are a delight. And Salt Lake City's lucky that you picked us.
Thank you.
To come and build more community. Thank you for working with us too. And we and our economic development team will keep listening to small business owners like you to find new ways that we can help, because what you're doing is exactly the way we want to grow.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Salt Lake.
Thank you for your time. I actually have a few questions for Councilmember Eva Lopez Chavez. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself and what you're trying to accomplish here at City Council? But most importantly, what's your favorite type of ice cream?
My favorite ice cream is called mamey, and it's this delicious fruit related to the papaya that you find in Mexico. And you can buy that at Rancho Market on our west side. It's delicious. I'm Eva Lopez Chavez. I'm the newly elected council member of District 4. District 4 is from South Temple to 8th South, 4th West to University Street. And it's this beautiful rectangle in the center of our city. I call it the heart and soul of our city. Our residents have so much hope for the growth that we are seeing in our city. And we want to do it in a way that's smart, that's this acupuncture development where we identify housing need without sacrificing our neighborhoods. I think this is a huge opportunity that I see as a council member to exercise my powers in a way that actually uplifts that history of our neighborhoods. These have been working class neighborhoods that have raised families, that have been places where immigrants have come and left their mark on our city. And we want to continue that legacy. I think we're hungry to enter into this new era of Salt Lake City and define it in a way that undoes injustices, but also expands on those access to opportunity that we talk about, whether it's education, childcare, job opportunities, or entertainment. We want everybody to visit our downtown and to feel safe. We also want our neighborhoods to feel celebrated and to identify with the rest of our city. You know, when I talk about service, for me as a kid, I saw many injustices. I share my family has had a different history. There were migrants that came over that had to fight for access to workers' rights, access to proper education, healthcare. And I think as the closest branch of government to our people, to our neighbors, since I was a kid, I have seen these injustices stop and create barriers for people. When I came back to Salt Lake City, I was the first one to be born stateside. I was born in Salt Lake City. And almost 30 years ago, I saw my family get pushed out. They moved to Idaho. So a decade ago, I had the ability to come back to the city I was born in. And I was immediately accepted. I felt like the beauty of our community was that we treat it as a family, chosen family. You know, I'm the oldest of 4 in my family, and I talk about it. I'm Latina, I'm proud of my Mexican heritage. And it's something that I bring these values of family first, familias primero, into this story and into my policymaking decisions, because I think it's something that identifies with each family in our city that we're able to promote and progress. So when I talk about service, again, it's in service to our families. It's in service to my young sisters. I have a little 10-year-old sister now that I look up to. And I think in every decision that I make, what is something that's going to help the incoming generation so that they can have that daily life can be just a little bit easier for them, whether that's the transit that they're taking to university when the time comes, or access to proper air quality that they breathe every day, or the economic opportunities to become a future homeowner, to transition from renter to permanent resident of Salt Lake City. These are the issues that we face as a city, and I'm excited to tackle them. I have so much hope for our city, and I hope that the energy that I bring to City Council and the diverse background that I have is able to amplify that for our community.
A few moments later.
Ooh, let's see. A Walk in the Clouds. It's a classic Keanu Reeves. It's a romance story. It's delicious. I recommend it. Growing up, Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's something that every child should watch. It teaches you empathy. It's a beautiful, beautiful show. Ooh, okay. I'm a big Skyrim girl. I don't play video games because I don't have time to right now, but growing up, Skyrim for sure. Elder Scrolls Edition. How about that? How Not to Lose the Time War, and it's by 2 different authors. I recommend you look it up. It is a delicious fiction love story affair, and the way it's scripted is these 2 authors are being playful with each other. It's sci-fi. It really digs deep into love, identity, culture. I recommend you read it.
Thank you for your time. I just have a few questions for Councilmember Sarah Young. Can you tell me just a little bit about yourself and what you're trying to accomplish here in City Council? But most importantly, what's your favorite type of ice cream?
I am City Councilwoman Sarah Young, and I represent District 7 here in Salt Lake City, which is the greater Sugar House area, as most people commonly know it. So my background prior to joining the council has been supporting Utah.
Welcome to the March 5th, 2024 City Council meeting. Our meetings are public and you're welcome to join us in person or by watching from the Council's agenda page, Zoom, Facebook, YouTube, or SLC TV. We hope you'll continue to join us in whichever manner you feel most comfortable. This is a work session meeting during which there's no public comment. Please join us tonight during our 7 p.m. formal meeting to share your comments. We, of course, welcome your feedback anytime by mail to P.O. Box 145476, Salt Lake City, Utah, 84114-5476, by email at council.comments@slcgov.com, or via our 24-hour phone comment line at 801-535-7654. Comments we receive on agenda topics are shared with council members and posted to our website, slccouncil.com. We will now begin our work session. The first item on our agenda is updates from the administration. I see we've got Weston Clark and Andrew Johnston ready to join us at the table. How are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you. All right. Hello. It's been a while since I've been here. Good to see you all. Quick updates for engagement in the city. Next slide is just our regular reminder to go to the feedback page for residents. Anybody who would like to go engage with ongoing surveys and other projects in the city. Next slide. Quick updates from planning. The Planning Commission has recommended adoption of the adaptive reuse ordinance, and it's on its way to the council. The 2100 South Station Area Plan and zoning amendments that include Ballpark Station area zoning amendments is scheduled for another community engagement on March 7th, which is at the Ballpark Community Council. And then there will be presentations given to the Business Advisory Board and the Planning Commission later in March. And there's also going to be a public open house on March 26th. More details to come on that. Quick update from the Arts Council. The Arts Council, in partnership with Civic Engagement Team, have finalized their initial engagement for the iconic West Side art and have put together a report that's going through some internal review, and there will be an update for you all soon on that. Next slide. Some transportation updates. Capitol Hill traffic calming, transportation and engineering staff are preparing for the second phase to follow up on the 2023 construction. This will involve permanent changes to the intersection at 600 North, 200 West, and Center Street. In addition, approximately 8 to 12 new speed humps are planned to backfill locations that were not constructed last year. Design package is close to final and is expected to be out to bid for construction this spring. Construction documents are nearly complete for upgrades to the 500 North, 1000 West intersection. This is a standalone project, but it's being done in coordination with some future efforts along the corridor on 1000 West, 6 North to North Temple. And then the 600, 700 North reconstruction, 40% concept design rollout is happening currently. The project team has been meeting with property owners and stakeholders. A public open house is planned for Thursday, March 28th at Backman Elementary from 5:30 to 7:30 on that project. And then public lands update, the Riverside Park lights have been installed, and a grand opening to celebrate the installation of those lights will be at the park on March 28th from 4 to 5:30 p.m. Next slide. I think you had an update on this last time we were here, but the Love Your Block applications are open, and the team will be doing a mini grant application assistance event March 6th, which is tomorrow at 3:30 p.m. to 5 p.m. at Neighborhood House. So we encourage people who are interested in some assistance or having any questions on Love Your Block, they can show up there. And that is everything from me.
Hello, council members. Next slide, please. I did not include a slide about shelter capacity. If you look at the dashboard today, everything is at capacity, although I think at 1 o'clock there was some beds available at the Women's Center. I'm sure those will be filled pretty quickly. However, over the weekend we had 2 nights that were declared code blue in this county. We did have additional beds available, and there were beds available both nights at different locations in the system for code blue beds. So that's no longer in place. this week. I don't anticipate more Code Blue this week, although there may be a night that would come close. I want to give a thank you to all those who did help with volunteering at the Code Blue facilities. Much needed all those 2 nights. So thank you to the public, and it's still available on the website for the Salt Lake Valley Coalition to End Homelessness. You can still sign up for shifts if they're needed in the future. What you'll see on the screen right now, on the left again, is the coalition website and the State Office of Homeless Services website, and then the telephone number to get access to beds in the shelters. On the right, you'll see something that may look familiar to you from a couple weeks ago. Our update here was the ask in part at the legislative session, about $127.5 million for these particular needs. What you'll see right below that is what was actually funded. A lot of this is, I think it's similar to, if you know the song "The Gambler," made famous by Kenny Rogers. Know when to hold 'em, when to fold 'em, know when to walk away and when to run. You never count your money when you're sitting at the table. And that's the same as a legislative session. You got to wait till the end of the session to know what the funding is going to look like, because in the middle of it, it looks pretty chaotic and strange at times. At the end of the session, we had about $64.5 million towards the needs you see above. About $15 million of that was actually private match. We spent a lot of time the last 2 years working very hard from a city perspective to encourage collaboration with the county, with the state, and with private businesses, the Utah Impact Partners, and the private philanthropy groups. Because of this, we knew that we're going to need everybody together for these asks and to join in the funding. What that means is probably not 3 years of operations like identified above. It probably looks at this current year of operations, and the goals right now, we need a lot of things to sort out, but the goals would be to fund current shelter services in this county and this state for this coming year, to ensure that people aren't left with gaps in their funding as much as we can possibly help that, and ensure that all of the current locations, including the new ones we've talked about, the MVP, and projects like that would be fully funded for operations. Above and beyond that, there's also one-time money that was specifically set for non-congregate shelter. That means additional shelter beds. So the intent right now is to work with current providers, new locations, current locations, anybody we can, to try and continue shelter beds past April. Now, there is a gap of May and June, because that's this fiscal year and state money doesn't happen until July 1. So we're going to work on that. We're going to work with current shelter operators to see if there's any ability to continue services forward, and working with Wayne's office at the State Office of Homeless Services to see what else we could bring online to continue this shelter capacity through the summer into next winter. A lot of details still need to be worked out, but that's the intent right now. And we can come back as we get further into the springtime with specific plans or ideas that are coming forward and options we may have. So at this point, we don't have details for you, but no, that's the intent moving into the spring. I know there was a specific question about the micro shelter community and that process of transitioning to the next phase of that. This council took, or members of this council who were here, took the opportunity to make a temporary land use resolution that extends through the end of May of this year for that current site on 6th West. That's still in place. Any change of that, I believe, would be needed to be done by this council to look at another temporary land use resolution or something else. The state right now is looking at not being able to open their second phase starting in May necessarily, probably in the summer at some point. So that's brand new information based on what came out of the legislative session. So we still need to talk with the state a little more about their plans, details, and then funding availability, and what that means for this particular first phase at that location. So we'll have more information from you as we get further in the next few weeks about what the options might be, what the details would look like, and then if there's anything on the city side that we want to talk about. But I don't have details quite yet for what that looks like post May 30th.
Is it May 30th or April 30th?
I believe it was May 30th was the temporary land.
I think we delayed when we did it, so originally we had planned, but because there was a delay in opening.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councilwoman Young?
So I have two, I guess, a comment and a follow-up request. So first is just an incredible thank you and gratitude to everyone here in the city and the business owner community who went and advocated for these funds. I appreciate in watching the fiscal process that number was basically non-existent after the first round of budgeting by the legislature, and to see where the community got it to, I just think deserves recognition, and appreciate your leadership in that effort. So thank you. My follow-up to that is related to the fact that we are looking at a lot of these funds being in kind of more of a one-time capacity as opposed to ongoing, noting that one of the future budgetary lenses that we'll see from our legislators is, could we spend the money they gave us? I would love, in not an every meeting or every month update, but maybe every 2 months, just to get a sense of where we are related to expending and using the resources we've been given, to be able to help prepare for next session and the future asks.
Sure. The State Office of Home Services puts out grants to operators for next fiscal year. And so they'll go through their process with current operations, future planned ones, and then the budgets will come in and go out again for the contracts. So we'll know that piece for operations. You're correct. The one-time funding was the bulk of the governor's ask this year, knowing that that's the most available funds generally at the state level. So the one-time funds this year, what you may be interested in is not just the operations, but probably what planning is for future shelter options for one time, right? So yeah, we'll bring that back to you as an open discussion, and also what the state's looking at. And there's probably going to be some interplay between us because some of those operations are in this city.
Councilmember Pui?
Thank you for the update. We were all waiting until the last possible minute. Very nervous about that, and it's good that we saw significant funding, although short of what we hope was or was requested. But it is exciting to see some of that. Unfortunately, the commitment is not long term, which is frustrating for everybody that works trying to solve this issue. But on the micro shelter community, I will be supportive of. Obviously, this is the policy discussion for this body, but I will be supportive of extending the land use for the micro shelter community, but understanding that it's a short term and it's trying to piece it together while the state is working through their hoops. So I'm hoping that we can have that discussion at some point. Last thing I want is people that are doing well there not having a place to be while the state is doing the other micro shelter community, not very far from there, and having that gap. I think that's not right. So working, I will be supportive of keeping it there for a little while. Just putting it out there. I know you
Just point of clarification on that. We need to consult with legal on what our options actually are for that. I know it's a little wonky, but yes. Just wanted that on public record.
Sharing my thought about, I would like that potential, but we need to definitely discuss this.
Yeah, so council members, we do intend to pursue all options and see what's available legally from the city and also what the state's intentions are, and then we can have that particular discussion. We do have March and April. Probably want to consult with you about your process and the budget coming into May and your timeframes and your schedule. So we will bring that forward as soon as possible.
Thank you. And also just reiterating, thank you for all the work. I continue to be nervous that this total amount allocated does not help us reach a level of what was labeled as enforcement several times, especially as outlined as our responsibility in the sports bills. And so we have a lot of advocacy and analysis left to do, but I'm so thankful for your leadership and staying at the table and getting as much as we could and making it a little less nerve-wracking for us to be in this position. My only other critique is that if you're going to bring Kenny into the space, you better be prepared to sing. That's the only other thing I got for you, Andrew. So.
I brought Weston here for that purpose. I will say, as part of this funding, $10 million of it is ongoing from the state. So that's a good, strong starting point. That is committed ongoing every year for operations, as well as the 2.5 was committed as ongoing now into the mitigation fund. So that state mitigation fund is pretty much set year in, year out going forward at this point. We will know from those funds what our allocation will be in the next couple of months. It may change slightly from last year, but we don't know quite yet.
Thanks so much. Anyone else? All right, thank you both. We will now be moving on to the landscaping and buffers CHAP text amendment follow-up. Jennifer Bruno's coming up with Michaela Octay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a follow-up conversation. The council's held several conversations about the proposed changes in this ordinance, and the one sort of outstanding item for the council to settle on is enforcement on residents in the city who have already installed artificial turf, especially residents who installed it thinking that the city either allowed it or would eventually allow it based on water conservation goals. As you know, the current proposed ordinance does not allow artificial turf based on feedback from public utilities. And so the council has heard from several constituents about how the city is planning to handle constituents who might have invested in artificial turf thinking they were doing the right thing. So there are several, I guess they'd be on a spectrum of options in the staff report. Since the staff report was published, community and neighborhood staff let us know that their preferred approach is to have a sort of a grace period that allows people to come into compliance, not necessarily recommending how long that grace period should be, but that's that last bullet point. And depending on the council's discussion, this is on your formal meeting for adoption tonight. If the council ends up establishing a process for enforcement that requires some more wordsmithing of the ordinance, we can always defer action on tonight's meeting and schedule it at a future meeting. So with that, I will turn it back to the council maybe for questions or discussion.
Thank you. Council, any questions, comments, concerns? Yes, Councilmember Deegan.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the staff report and the different options there, and I appreciate that. When I was reading through the options, I did think the grace period, you know, and I just threw out 18 months. I mean, I ballpark, okay, 2 years maybe too long, 1 year is not long enough, so let's make it 18 months. But I think the grace period is a reasonable opportunity for people to figure it out, and but we still need to make sure we abide our process. Our ordinance didn't change, so it was prohibited before, it's still prohibited, and I think a grace period of 18 months is a nice middle ground there. So I'm supportive of that. I don't think I had any other changes that we, and I think all the other changes that we've made, I'm agree to.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Councilmember Pui.
Just a quick question on the grace period. When does the clock start ticking? When the ordinance is passed, or because we don't know who's out of compliance.
Typically, ordinances go into effect upon publication, and that can sometimes be a week, 2 weeks, and so then the grace period would start upon the effective date of that ordinance. I think that in discussing with CAN staff, the city does not have the resources to proactively enforce on anyone, and so it would be a complaint basis for the enforcement to happen.
So after that waiting period, any parking strip that is out of compliance, after that, we're all going to have to enforce and follow the process to make that legal again. So basically, that's the recommendation, that we wait until to enforce this. But I just don't want us, we have worked so hard the city administration, you guys, no, we haven't. You guys have worked so hard on making this happen. I just want to make sure that the ordinance.
I now needed clarification. We're not waiting 18 months to enforce on new infractions. We're just giving 18 months to bring into compliance those who are out of compliance with the new ordinance. With regard to artificial turf. Okay.
Just that one piece.
But yes,
Okay.
but enforcement on all the other things is as normal.
So it will take effect immediately when it's published. Okay, that is the point. Okay, that makes me feel very comfortable. Thank you. I appreciate that. I should have probably read a little more of my packet.
Councilmember Horton.
And will the people that we know of that are already out of compliance, will they receive like a letter or notification that they have 18 months? Is that something we could do? Okay.
I think we could absolutely do that and should do that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks.
Anyone else? All right, thank you all so, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to clarify. So staff will update the motion sheet because this is a fairly simple clarification that can be added to the motion sheet so the council can take action tonight. And we'll update the motion sheet. Go ahead.
Perfect, thank you so much. See, we made this one much less painful. I told you we were going to be done, so thank you all.
May I clarify one item?
Yes.
Just, Michaela noted that we would send everyone who has the artificial turf a letter. We don't have a list, and so that makes it tricky. We wouldn't be able to send them a letter until we know about them.
I think someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that we know of about 10, approximately 10.
That's about less than half of what we know is out there.
Yeah, those are the current enforcement cases, and I think Cindy's making the point that we don't have a way to proactively reach out to anyone who might not be an enforcement case, but who might have installed artificial turf.
And the enforcement cases are the easier ones because they've had a lot of warning and their turf is older. The difficult ones are the ones that have installed in this time period when the council was looking at amending the ordinance and they've done their whole front yards. And so I don't know how you want to handle that, if you want to give them notice of, or just.
It sounds like the comms team is going to have to help us with a little bit of a strategy to get notification out, but maybe if we don't know by the end of those 18 months, you're considered a new infraction, something like that. So, okay.
Yeah, I was just going to add the ones that we do know about, that we have the contact information, I would like to give them direct notice. And then if we can do some public outreach for the other parts, and, put it in newsletters or things like that. Thanks.
All right. Thank you all so much. Council, we're running ahead of schedule. I really love this iteration of us where we're super efficient. But I hope that means that the University of Utah Baseball Stadium public benefits analysis people are ready. So Jen Bruno is going to retain her position here at the table. We're going to wait for Kristen Riker and Kimberly Chytris to join us, but they're not in the room yet. So please don't go too far, but we can pause on discussion until they come.
I just messaged them, so hopefully they're here shortly. Thank you.
All right. We do not have Kristen. We have Tyler from the Parks Department, and we have Kimberly. So thank you all for being early. Sorry for our efficiency. But let's talk about the University of Utah Baseball Stadium public benefits analysis.
If you're okay, Madam Chair, I will turn it over to Kimberly. The last discussion the council had, we went over the basics of the public benefits analysis. The council held a public hearing, and then since that time, there have been some iterations to the University of Utah's plans that have caused the administration to send an updated memo on how those changes affect the public benefit analysis and whether it does. So.
Thanks, Council. I'm Kimberly Chaitris, Senior City Attorney. Got a good echo going here. In the memo, we as administration, on behalf of the administration, we've stated some facts that have come up in the negotiations with the university. The first is the design elements. The PBA mentioned a potential 35-foot wall in left outfield, which allows them to have a shorter outfield. The other aspect of the design without this lease is that there would not be an offset from the street. So the stadium would be built right up on the boundary of the right-of-way. Our right-of-way goes right on the east side of the sidewalk. So there's some grass and a bunch of trees there that without the lease will all be taken out, and the stadium building will be up on the sidewalk. So that's one of the design elements that allowing a ground lease would allow about a 20-foot offset, meaning the building would be, I think, at least 20 feet off of the right-of-way line. The second thing in the memo, and I'm sorry, is there an echo for anyone else except me? Okay. Maybe I'll just back up a little bit, see if that helps. The second element is that we were able to discuss with the university what public access to the facilities would look like. So the university has agreed that city residents and recreational groups would be able to lease the stadium and a practice facility for the cost of the operations. So they normally charge, there's a cost schedule they have. They do not have a finalized one for this facility, but they charge for example, the cost to have somebody on site or do custodial or security or whatever the exact event needs. The city residents and recreational groups would be able to do that for a cost that covers the operational costs, a fee that covers their operational costs. They also, in their design, in the university's design, want to build a portion of their batting practice facility, which is a building that would encroach into the leased area. That would also be available for rent or use by the public for the fee of the operational costs if you're a city resident or city recreational group. Along with that, the university has agreed to build a restroom, and the restroom would be facing the park and can be used by park patrons during park hours.
So the batting cages, they would have to pay an additional fee for to use?
Yeah, it would be like a rental fee, like you would have to if you wanted to use the field in this or the stadium, any of the other facilities. They would charge like an operational fee. So if they have to have somebody on site or security or something like that.
And what about the bathrooms?
The bathrooms would be open to the public for free.
Okay.
And they would face out into the leased area. So the leased area will be fenced, if approved, would be fenced and locked to the park during university or stadium events. But the rest of the time it's open to the public, and the restrooms would be open to the public anytime that space is.
Anytime that the park is?
Anytime that the leased area is. So if they have a university event in the stadium, so they're using the leased area as part of outfield seating, the leased area would be, the fence would be closed or locked, and the restrooms are within that. So during a university event, the restrooms would be available to people in the stadium, but not available to people in the park outside of the leased area.
Right, but let's say the park's open, it's a typical Sunday, and there's nothing going on at the stadium. The bathrooms will be open.
The bathrooms will be open to the public, yes.
Okay. If there's an opportunity for the batting cages to be used by some of the youth teams for a reduced fee or for free or something like that. But we can, I know that's a lot more work and more negotiations, but what I've heard from the feedback that I've heard from our youth teams, who for them, there's a lot of conversations about baseball happening right now. And so that is coming up as part of this stadium. They're not able to, the batting cages to them doesn't help because they already are paying a lot in to be able to use the park. So they don't feel like that is a public benefit to them. And I understand that this policy is for the whole city, but I wonder if there's an opportunity there.
Yeah, I mean, I can start to respond to that. I think when we approached the university following our last conversation, those operational fees will be required for this facility. And that is really the importance of this update, because I think there is some assumed public benefit that may not be available depending on an entity's ability to pay for those fees. And so we want to make sure that that's in front of council and they understand that there is some limitation when it comes to the operational expenses of those facilities.
And I agree that it'd be nice to have a reduced fee. I think of the batting cages almost like Steiner when you rent out the Steiner Ice, or when you rent out the pool or anything else like that, that there is an additional fee because those are facilities that are more, they need to have oversight and someone there on site. But they, if you have 5 cages there, the whole place is rented out. You can use a lot there and you can get a lot done in a short period of time with that number of facilities. But if we use the field house is the same way. It's rented out at an operational cost, which is less than the other fees that they would actually charge other people. So there is still a benefit, and it could be used for high school teams and anybody who wanted it.
And just to clarify, my understanding is the university would agree to what they call a reduced fee, in the sense that they're willing to charge city residents and city recreational groups only the cost to cover their operations for use of those facilities. An outside group would pay more. So that's what they've told us, and said we would limit it to the operation fees, but it's not free, despite some people's best efforts. We wanted to clarify that the construction timeline, the university would want to start construction July 1st. Let's see. The tree preservation. So we had put in, I think, the prior memo that there are 4 giant sequoia trees within the leased area. The city has asked for the university, if they lease the property, to take all necessary steps to try to preserve and protect the trees. At least one of those trees would be impacted by the construction of the field and is likely not able to be saved. The university anticipates being able to save at least 2, if not 3, of the other trees. Normally, if there was a tree removed, the city charges a mitigation fee that would possibly be taken out of the $4.2 million towards the park improvements. So this is in here, and then something else that's not in here is in the offset, 20-foot offset we mentioned, there's about 9 trees on the university's property that would be taken out if they build up to the right-of-way. So this is information for your decision making. And then we also included, there have been some questions about what the costs are to the city to replace the softball field and multi-use field, if those are relocated somewhere else or if they're rebuilt. In the case of one of the fields, if it was rebuilt on site. The last thing is, we've been made aware that this property, a portion of this property where the lacrosse or multi-use field is located, was acquired along with the Stein Eriksen property Please forgive me. The Steiner property, it was acquired from the federal government. The BLM has restrictions on that property that require the property to be used for a recreational purpose, and for the Secretary of the Interior to approve like any change in use or to evaluate a change in use on that property. So from a legal perspective, the recommendation, if you want to go forward, would be to condition the lease or the construction of the buildings, like it would be part of the practice facility and the restroom, on the BLM's approval of those plans. And then there's a draft or a proposed term sheet attached that would address sort of the elements of the public benefit analysis that we would want to require as either lease conditions or operating conditions if we enter into the ground lease to protect the, to ensure that the city realizes the anticipated public benefits of the ground lease. So are there questions to consider?
Council?
And just from a process perspective, this is also on your formal meeting tonight for adoption. Kimberly has provided a sort of clarified motion sheet that links the adoption to the term sheet, the updated term sheet that reflects some of these changes. And so that will be printed at your places if the council is comfortable with it.
Madam Chair. So thank you very much, Kimberly and Tyler. First, I just want to thank the broader community on the engagement of this whole process. And they're expressing their concerns, expressing their desires, expressing their vision for a future Sunnyside Park. But I really need my thanks to the city staff, to the council staff, to Kimberly, especially on this, working through with the university on the whole process. You work through it, you listen to the concerns, you listen to the desires, and I think moving forward we have a great project and a great prospect for Sunnyside Park in the future, and that future will be determined by the community in the next engagement on what the future looks like in Sunnyside Park and the vision. So, but thank you very much for going through this, and I appreciate it.
Council? And thank you, Councilmember Dugan, for, I mean, this has been a full part-time job for you negotiating this with everyone. So thank you for helping us all kind of sort through it. Thank you all. And I guess we'll see you at the vote. All right, we are going to move on to item number 6 and actually move on to the budget amendment. To start, Ben Ludke is going to join us. We don't have finance people here yet, though. Shall we give them a few moments?
We've just barely texted them to let them know. I bet Ben could get started on the basics.
Ben, you good? All right. Thank you so much.
There's only 4 items left. The council does have the option at the formal meeting tonight to adopt the rest of the items in the budget amendment. There is a new attachment. It's attachment 2. And this is the ordinance amendment to City Code, Chapter 2.08, Administrative Organization. This would create a new division in the Public Lands Department. It would be the Planning and Design Division. The amendment also adds to the list of the functions for the department, which would include acknowledging the division, stating it is responsible for the management and execution of the planning, design, and construction of public lands capital projects. This relates to item D1. This is a follow-up item. So last fall in budget amendment number 2, the council considered this request originally. At the time, the council transferred 4 existing landscape architects from the engineering division in Public Services Department to the Public Lands Department. Those 4 architects, as well as 2 existing planners, would form the new division. The other part of this request, which the council did not approve last fall, but is before you today, is to create a division director. This is reclassifying an existing position, a planning manager, and they would be switched from a merit position to an appointed position. The employee has agreed to that change. Once an employee is merit, you cannot force them to change to be appointed, so they have to consent. So that process has been completed. The cost this fiscal year is budget neutral. There are vacancy savings within the Public Lands Department's budget that would pay for the cost increase for the division director. In future fiscal years, that additional ongoing cost, because it's a higher pay grade, would need to be added to the base budget for the department. Next item is council added. Oh.
Just on the, can you go over the reasoning for this? Are we going to see more efficient and expedited projects being completed, prioritizing? How's this benefit the city by having the change in staff?
Is this on the public lands position?
Correct.
Okay, I think we should have the administration speak to that because we're not in a position to.
Good point. Thank you.
Mary Beth is on her way up.
Is there another thing? Can we put a pin in that one and move on to discussing something else?
There's 3 more items.
Oh, hang on. The finance team, man, they are the most timely, just showing up when we need them. Welcome, finance team. Sorry that we are.
Mary Beth's on her way. We just saw you skip ahead.
Sorry, we're just ridiculously efficient at handling our business. All right, so we have Mary Beth Thompson and Greg Cleary joining Ben Lutke. And Councilmember Dugan, did you want to repeat? We're on item D1 currently. And Councilmember Dugan, did you want to repeat your question?
Sure. So thanks for running up here. I appreciate it. The question is, we're looking for an appointed division director to public lands. And my question is, explain or walk us through the benefits of that as far as efficiencies on projects being completed or time, timelines, budget, et cetera, on the reasons why we're doing this. Oh.
Mic isn't working. I would need either Kirsten or Tom here to answer that question.
And since they just left, we'll sidetrack.
Ben, can we make that a follow-up? Can we do like an email follow-up on that?
Yeah, and would you want that item to be deferred to action on a future date? Because then we can update the motion
Unless
sheet
you can
for
get it
tonight.
before any vote tonight. Tyler just appeared magically. Tyler, it's like you knew we were saying public lands and you magically appeared. Councilmember Dugan, would you like to repeat your question one more time, please?
Thanks again, Tyler, for being at the table. The question is just the new appointed division director. What's to the benefit to the city? What's the benefits for having this new director as far as budget is concerned, timelines is concerned, hitting deadlines, et cetera? What's the need and what's the benefit to the city for having this extra person?
Yeah.
Or additional leadership?
Yeah, great question. So in October of last year, you all probably remember we presented the merging of the engineering landscape architect team with our planning team within public lands. So we essentially had 2 teams working on implementation of public lands capital development projects. We have integrated that team. We recommended at that time that we create a new division that would operate within public lands to improve the project delivery process and to organize that entire structure. At that time, that position was requested to not be an appointed position, and so this is now moving it into appointed position, and I think putting that planning design manager at an equal setting within our department, so there's an equity issue there, but I think overall the implementation and I guess the efficiency of the new project delivery process is what we're most excited about. We have $200 million backlog of projects right now, and we think this process will help us improve that.
So just to clarify, the only new staff that this is adding is the director, isn't it? Oh, no, I thought we were just moving staff from different places.
Yeah, we're not creating new staff with this change today. This position exists, so we have a planning and design manager. This would be making it an appointed position. So the budget impact of that is probably around under $6,000 annually, but no new positions associated.
And I think you created the position previously, in the budget opening in like December.
Yes.
So it's recent.
Right, okay. So no new positions, just elevating one, moving the others.
Yes, that position is currently a grade 34. It would be moved to a grade 35.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
Council members? Okay, I think we're good to move on, Ben.
Okay. The next item is an update. It's item I1. This was a placeholder. We received notice that there are some single-family homes where the city has a right of first refusal to buy back the properties. We've since learned that most of those owners have changed their mind. They don't want to sell at this time. So there is not a need for funding for this item. The Housing and Stability Division is working on draft policies for the Community Land Trust and the First-Time Homebuyer Program, which is what creates these buyback opportunities. So those policies will be coming to you, and those could also address how to handle funding. Since you never know when someone will want to sell, it's kind of hard to plan when the funding needs to be available. The last time the council discussed this item, the direction was to pursue those right of first refusals when possible, so as not to lose this tool to preserve home ownership for moderate income residents. And then there's two more items. Item A12, this is a request for $166,000 from the Emergency 911 Dispatch Fund. This fund receives its revenues from an excise tax on phone bills. So if you look on your phone bill, there's usually a really small, like maybe $1 for 911. It goes into this fund. The city has historically used this fund for software and equipment upgrades. This is in keeping with that practice. The software is for medical dispatch, and it's believed this will further improve response times. The department already exceeds the industry best practice of answering 911 calls within 10 seconds or less over 90% of the time. What this software would do is it speeds up the response time between answering the call, gathering the information in a faster way, and then dispatching the appropriate public safety response resource. The medical protocol is currently used by VECC, V-E-C-C, Valley Emergency Communications Center. Salt Lake City 911 and VECC together are responsible for answering almost every 911 call within the Valley. They currently use different medical response protocols. So if a call comes in and it needs to be transferred to the other agency, they currently have to take additional time to adjust the information to the different parameters of each of the different softwares. This would move Salt Lake City 911 to be on the same medical dispatch protocol as VECC, so there's more seamless transfers between the two agencies, and that will speed up the response time. The Utah legislature has also stated a goal of creating an interoperable platform between 911 systems, and so this advances that statewide goal. It's also a follow-up from an audit of the 911 department. It was a performance audit back in 2019, and it had feedback from survey respondents in different public safety agencies that thought the medical dispatch software, they scored it poorly. So this is also, that was a 2019 audit, but this is an item that would advance those findings.
Council? All right.
And then the last item, A13, it is a request for $250,000 one time from general fund balance. And this would be to hire outside counsel to handle items where the attorney's office needs specialized skills that current staff do not have, or where the attorney's office may be recused.
Council? All right, last chance to ask budget amendment for questions. Good? All right, thank you, everyone. Have a good afternoon. We are still running significantly ahead of schedule.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
May I interrupt that?
Yes, sir.
Did we have results on the, projections on the sales tax?
Or the reports from December?
Yeah. Have we had the holiday numbers coming in? I know that we were waiting for that.
We do. I don't know the exact number, but we can brief you if you'd like, maybe
Please.
next time.
And we were a little nervous, so last time we talked about that, so I would love to get some.
Well, November was good, but December was not, but I do not have an exact number.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we're going to be like wanting every piece of data leading up to this budget season, please. All of it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
And
Thank you for remembering that.
we can track that for budget amendment number 5.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much. All right, Council, we're still running significantly ahead of schedule. We have one time-bound thing that's preventing us from going back to number 3 currently. So can we please move on to item number 12 and discuss our public comment policy? I think we're going to have Lahua Weaver at the table. Katie, would you mind joining her at the table as well? Our city attorney, Katie Lewis, will join her there. So I know this has been a topic that for each of us at different times in the past couple of years has popped up with varying intensity and need. And especially this last legislative session for me was a real eye-opener on the finite resources that we have, both in terms of our staff time, our personal council elected official time, our monetary resources, and executing the business of the city in an efficient manner. So as we are evaluating all of these concepts and moving into the next stage of our growth that the increased constituency is requiring, that the increased demands on our time, on our attention, on our resources demanding, this is the next phase in us evaluating how we allocate each of those things. So we've got amazing council staff to help us with possibilities. They've assimilated information from, I think, 16 municipalities that kind of mirror similar priorities to us, similar, that would mirror our future trajectory for demographics. And then we have legal counsel to help us, as we discuss possibilities, ensure that we are honoring constitutional protections that are guaranteed in the First Amendment and all of those other legal ramifications. So with that, Lahua and Katie.
I'll just start with a quick introduction. As the council has talked about this, and as over the years we have worked on council policies and rules and procedures for your council meetings, there seem to be 3 primary goals or values that the council has held over time. One of them, as in the staff report, which was added online earlier today, one of those goals has always been to create a safe environment where people feel comfortable to come and attend your meetings and participate as they desire to. The second has been to create that type of feedback forum where members of the community can come and address the council on issues that are important to them. And third is the legal requirement, or not legal requirement, but the legal protection for the council to create a meeting forum that allows them to conduct city business in an orderly and efficient manner. And so all of the rules and procedures that the council has approved over time really are aimed at supporting those 3 basic values. In researching from other cities how other entities conduct their public comment and open comments, there are a lot of options available to the City Council. And we've listed just a sample of those in the staff memo for council members to consider. And we're happy to respond to questions, and I'll turn time over to Katie if you have any introductory remarks.
Hi, council members. Katie Lewis, Salt Lake City Attorney. I will just add to what Lehua said and remind everyone that the public comment period is a protected First Amendment space. So when we are looking at various rules, you want to be sure that you are never preventing somebody from expressing their viewpoint, but rather adhering to the objectives that Lehua just mentioned, which are being able to conduct an orderly and efficient meeting, ensuring that the meeting space is safe for everyone, and ensuring that individuals are able to give feedback to the council regardless of their viewpoint. And the suggestions that council staff has come up with balance those needs and are available for your discussion.
Thank you. And thank you, council staff, for all of the work. Like, just gathering this data, I know, was no small feat.
May I
Cindy?
add one? Just a point of clarification for the members of the public who are listening, and that is that there are two different categories of comment at city council meetings. One is statutorily required public comment, and that is on things such as the budget and land use issues, master plans, rezonings, things like that. So we're not talking about either of those two statutorily required categories. On those, the council takes comment in all the different ways from all the people who come. The second category is this public comment period. It is provided entirely at the council's discretion. So it's possible that a council at some point in the future could say, that doesn't work, we're not going to do that. So it's entirely your discretion and is therefore very much subject to the time, place, and manner regulations or guidelines that you decide to place around it. You can do time, place, and manner regulations on your statutorily required hearings, but you have a little more flexibility, I would say, on the hearings that are, or on the public comment that's at your discretion.
Thank you for that clarification. Council members, anyone want to kick off the conversation?
Yeah, I've been reading a little bit about this. I think that there is some changes to be made on how we handle public comment. We would definitely want to keep, I think that might be the sentiment of all of us, want to keep the space to be a safe space for everyone, no matter what the comment is. I will be interested in limiting the comment section to a certain amount of time that we may agree to. So not changing necessarily the amount of time that each individual is allowed to speak, but limiting the amount of time that we're receiving public comment for items that are not on the agenda, which is usually the general comment section. So that's something that I will definitely like to work on. I also, and I think this is a question I have mostly for you guys. I've been reading about other cities, San Diego, Toledo, Charlottesville. Across the board, there are also different kinds of public comment in their meetings. There is some I appreciate from many of the meetings, which is a clarification about requesting non-repetitive comments. So non-repetitive comments are encouraged, usually the language that is used. And this is a concept that maybe we want to discuss if we like this or not. And it encourages citizen groups or large groups that come to council to comment on a given issue to self-select a spokesman, and that spokesman may have an extra minute or so to make a point. So in ways to encourage, more time to make a point, but also to make the meeting more efficient. So that is something that I'm interested in. So that just to kick off the conversation, I have more thoughts, but I don't know if that's something.
Thank you, Councilmember Pui. So the conversation is around two possible proposals. The first, that we limit the total amount of time allocated for public comment within a meeting. This only in the general comments section, again, not the statutorily required ones. And the second possibility would be that we would limit comments according to topic matter, such that any group that is there to discuss a topic that is a uniform topic, a uniform viewpoint on a topic, would select a spokesperson, potentially granting them more time. Anyone want to initiate conversation around either one of those, or respond, support, anything? Councilwoman Young.
So I'm going to speak to the first component of the proposal, which is, setting a clear amount of time. So I think one of the pieces that is appealing to me about that kind of constraint is that I think it may force the function of your second comment, which is that if we know that there is only so many minutes to, be used related to the public comment, that I may be more likely to not repeat in terms of recognizing that there is that set period of time. So I'm very supportive of the decision in terms of being able to say this is the time that we're operating within. And to, I think, some of the earlier comments, I think that it is definitely something that I look at through the lens of the limited city resource. For everyone and the good of the group, that is not specific to the time of your council members, but that is specific to the time of all of the members of council staff who are being compensated related to their time within those settings, and how that impacts our budgeting and our ability to do other city core functions.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Anyone else have anything to speak to on this?
I'd like to add comment, Chair. I think.
Okay, let's do Chavez, Lopez Chavez, Dugan, and Wharton.
Okay.
Thank you. In regards to the first part of our statement that Councilmember Pui mentioned in limiting the allotted time, I think we're trying to create parameters in which constituents can come to us to express their values. This is, and Katie, would you correct me if I'm incorrect, with First Amendment expressions during the general public comment period. We're not trying to hinder or censor or to limit that speech, but rather to engage and give the public an audience with their council members, while exercising that, also taking into consideration not just employee resources, but the time and the protected, curated community space that speech is given in. I think that we've allowed a lot of volatility, a lot of language and discussion that has not created that curated space. So I see, and I'm interpreting general public comment as a privilege of exercise in which people can bring speech that is meant to be perpetuated in language on local issues. We don't want to limit that, but I've seen this possibly misused with intent to try to pressure or lobby council. Again, we're not limiting that speech, but I think it's not fully intended to be used as a way to have dialogue. So, for the record, I want the public to understand there are there's a menagerie of tools at their disposal to connect with this institution, to engage with it, to bring concerns, and to have audience with individual council members. More than anything, I care deeply about creating a safe space of engagement for the rest of the constituencies, both now and in the future.
Thank you. Councilmember Dugan.
Thank you, and I appreciate the discussion. I appreciate the comments. And I'm in line, I think, with the comments we've made so far. The one difference we talked about limiting it to a time, which is I'm good with that too. An hour is we'll just use as a benchmark right now. But I think we should be careful in saying, oh, we're going to limit it to half hour for one subject, and and then we can move on. I think it would be to me, it would be an hour for general comments, and however they sign up, first come, first serve. You have an opening time when you can make a comment, and we'll take the first 60 minutes of comments, but however order they come in, because they still have the opportunity to write us, email us, text us, sit down with us, a lot of other options to engage the council individually or in small groups, and this, so we don't have to have that dialogue of, oh, we gave them 30 minutes this time, we only gave them 20 minutes last time. So just an hour in general. So that's my 2%.
Thank you. Councilmember Wharton.
Thank you. I think that I agree with what Councilmember Pui said, in that, for me, it's not helpful to hear the same comments over and over again, but I worry about how we determine whether the comment is the same as the last comment, or when we say to a group you need to appoint a spokesperson. I guess informally it might seem like maybe they don't, maybe not everybody in the group agrees that this is their spokesperson or that this should be the spokesperson. So I think probably what Councilmember Young is saying will hopefully encourage that to sort of happen on its own, organically. I also think that if a group thinks that it's effective to come and say the same thing over and over again, and that's the strategy that they want to use, I guess it's their right to do so. It's not effective for me. I don't think that it's effective for most of us, but I do think that if that's the way that coordinated speakers want to use their time, that they sort of have a right to do that if they fit within the overall time constraints. I would like to have an opportunity, and I'm worried about this also opening the door to other things, but in the event that there are that there's an issue that is related specifically to the city but is not on the agenda for one reason or another, for the council to be able to extend that with a supermajority, how do we do that in a way that doesn't, because certainly that would probably be content-based, not necessarily viewpoint-based, though. So that's a Katie question, I guess. And would that need to be done ahead of time, or what would that look like?
Council Chair, may I address a couple of the questions that I've heard raised?
Yes.
Great.
Yes, please.
Great, thank you. I'd like to start with Councilmember Chavez Lopez's question about creating a safe space. And I want to emphasize that the general comment period is the most protected First Amendment space. You are creating what's called a designated public forum, which is similar to if you were out on our sidewalks, which are traditional public forum. What that means is that the First Amendment protections are quite broad. And over the years, our courts have said that even speech that is repugnant is protected. That's one of the critical aspects of First Amendment protections that can be really uncomfortable. Because that First Amendment protection exists during the general public comment period, the council's rules need to be limited to effectuating an important government interest. The council, over the years, has identified the important government interests as truly making sure that the council members, the staff, and the public are safe, and ensuring that the council meeting is not disrupted and can be efficiently continued. When we think about ways of limiting the public comment, it will be important to view it through that lens. The other thing that's very important under the First Amendment protections is that any of the rules must be content neutral. That means that it cannot be a rule that restricts one viewpoint and not another. Through that lens, then, to answer some of the other questions, I would exercise caution around the appointing the spokesperson and even giving that spokesperson additional minutes. The reason for that is that might be viewed as a content-based restriction, saying we only want to hear one of your voices instead of the variety of voices, because those speakers may believe that there are a variety of nuanced positions within that. I do think that limiting the amount of total time for public comment is a reasonable rule because it effectuates that government interest, limiting disruption and allowing you all to continue your business. It is also content neutral. You are not saying there's only one viewpoint we want to hear from, and we're limiting the others. The question of extending the time to hear an additional item is something that I'd like to think about. I think there would have to be specific ties to the government objective, and maybe in that case, the government objective is matters that impact the city locally. I'm not sure because it starts to open up the time for a specific viewpoint or perspective, and I'm a little worried about that. I understand the point that you're making, though, Councilmember Wharton, and can put some thought around it.
If I can give an example of something that I'm thinking of. Let's say that, we have a council meeting that's set up as a normal council meeting, agenda's gone out or whatever, and let's say there's been some sort of emergency or something happens in the city, and people want to come and speak to that, and it's not already on the agenda, it hasn't been noticed up, but the emergency has happened, and there's good reason that we might want to hear from more people on that specific issue, and there isn't the ability to plan the other meeting. We're going to lose time, and there. Or let's say it's a tragedy and we have multiple people that want to come and express how it's impacted them, and we as a council want to give them that opportunity to do it, and the timing is important. Isn't there some kind of exception that the council could use for something like that, where timing is of the essence, and that's kind of what I'm envisioning.
Yeah, I wonder about extending the time in those circumstances to everyone who wants to speak. And in those instances, you may have 5 hours of public comment, but you will have ensured that all viewpoints during that meeting are allowed to speak. You're not restricting anyone from speaking. So I would be comfortable with adding into this policy something that said that if the council by a majority vote decides to extend regardless of the topic, then anyone who wants to speak on that date will have that opportunity within the 2 minutes per person. Then you're not limiting it to one subject or one viewpoint. It means that in those meetings, you may be there for 3 hours instead of an hour of public comment, though.
Is there a way to make it so that it's more?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Can it be 2/3?
Sure.
Yeah, there are cities that do the 2/3 rule.
But so you're saying there's no way to limit it to special circumstances that are, if it's either we can vote to extend it or we can't.
The other option that I can think of is if it truly is an emergency, then under the Open Meetings Act, you don't have to have 24-hour notice to amend your agenda. And you could create an agenda item for public comment on that specific topic, and it takes it out of the general comment, which is the most protected First Amendment area. So that's some on-the-fly creative thinking.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Okay, I'm going to grant myself the chance to ask a question. One of the things I saw in the notes from one of the municipalities was only residents who are constituents of the city who live in the municipality are welcome to comment. Can we speak to that possibility? I'm not sure I'm ready to propose it, especially because the process of verifying someone's address feels like a big administrative burden on our council staff, but I'm not opposed to exploring the possibility.
I mean, my first comment is that Salt Lake City cares a lot about protecting people's First Amendment rights, and so sometimes we might do things that are different than other cities, so I don't want another city to be the bellwether for how we do it. I'd have to take a look at that residence requirement, and I'm worried that it could be viewed as not content neutral, and people might not view that as their First Amendment rights being protected, but I'd like to look into it.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Young?
So I like the brainstorming in terms of like what is possible. I think in terms of the residency piece, I have two questions and follow up to that. So first, is there an inordinate burden on being able to produce identification? I just think about a lot of some of the conversations going on around voting and providing ID and how that, disproportionately disenfranchises some within our community. So that would be a concern I'd have related to executing that piece. The other component of that is one of the things that I'm proud of here in Salt Lake City is the fact that we welcome, experts from across the entire, world in terms of being able to come, and whether it's that they're looking at bringing a business here or something like that. I would want to make sure that those interests wouldn't be hampered by having limiting that opportunity to say, well, you don't have a business here yet, or something along those lines related to. Now, ideally, I can't really see a lot of those people speaking in public comment.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think public comment is the vehicle. I'm for us keeping it open, but yeah. I don't think it's, if our constituents are having difficulty being heard, I'm not opposed to finding a way to making sure that the people who are the tax-paying citizens of Salt Lake City get the attention of their duly elected officials primarily.
Yeah, and I understand that. So.
I think one thing to remember is analogize this public comment period as the same as being out on the sidewalk, exercising First Amendment rights, and think about times when people come to the capital city to exercise their First Amendment rights. It would be problematic for there be a residency requirement for somebody to exercise their First Amendment rights on our sidewalk. And if we analogize that to our public comment period, then we may want to be cautious about that.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Councilmember Pui.
So I think maybe there is some general feeling that there is some constraining on the time will be important. I worried about making exceptions to that rule. I think that rule needs to be about every topic. We are very open about receiving comment. I would like to add maybe add a question to this idea in ways to expand. I was just also doing my own random research on my phone about how other cities are handling this. And there is other cities that are allowing for video commenting and allowing for written comments like we do, but they include them on the agenda packet if they are given until a certain time. So I wonder if that's something that we could handle. I'm sure that that's a significant amount of work for the staff, but creating basically a way to receive video comment, someone sending, a 30-second, whatever amount of time or video to us, and then written comment until Sunday or Monday before, or Friday before the meeting or whatever it is, and including those on the agenda documents. So they are part of the document, they are part of the notice. I wonder if that is something that we could do to add a vehicle of public comment that is specific to us. Certainly, I read too much of the public comments. On the newspaper, on the email. I try to stay in tune of what is being said. So I certainly prefer that we limit the time and we don't make exceptions. And I understand where you're coming from. I certainly do understand where you're coming from, but it will also be a repetitive comment, most likely, if it's another issue. So with that, I would like to potentially explore the idea of adding some other avenues to receive comment, including video commenting with a specific set of rules related to that, and potentially including the written comments to a specific time, if that's allowed. Obviously, I'm asking for advice mostly, even though that I don't sound like I'm asking for your advice, to potentially include them on our record.
I don't have any problem at all from a legal perspective of offering another avenue for public comment, and in fact, I think that provides more opportunities and more ability for people to exercise their First Amendment rights. My one caution is, and this is really to staff, is if it's going to be included in the packet, then there needs to be a process to ensure that all comments are included, so there is not a claim that somebody's viewpoint is being excluded. Again, we want to be content neutral on everything.
Council, it sounds like we have consensus around limiting the general amount of time that we allow for general comment. We also are formalizing when we will receive comment for the sanity of our staff as they try to manage all of this. I haven't heard any of the other ideas at this point gather momentum or consensus. Am I interpreting this correctly from you all? Councilmember Young?
So I think the one outstanding question related to the time limit is just, are we doing this first come, first serve, or is there a lottery system related to who gets what will ultimately be a limited time slot?
Start with Katie on that one. Is there a legal precedent or something we need to abide by with that?
As long as the first come, first serve or lottery is fairly administered, and again, not based on viewpoint, I think you could do it either way. I also think by ensuring there are other ways for those people who didn't make the time slot for them to be able to comment, then helps show that you're being fair and receiving all comments. But you could do it either way.
Councilwoman Young?
I would like to follow up on that my recommendation would be the first come, first serve. And I actually say that to the benefit of clarity for the community. So I think what would be very challenging is if it was a lottery system, I could show up expecting that I might have an opportunity only to then be told, no, I'm sorry, you don't. Even if we were to say, well, we'll run the lottery 24 hours in advance, I still think that that's more analogous to first come, first serve. And so it's easier to let the public know, yes, you got a spot, versus no, I'm sorry, it was full this time. Here are the other mechanisms by which you can comment ahead of meeting. And I think that clarity is kindness to everyone involved.
Councilmember Dugan?
Yeah, I would agree with Councilmember Young. I think first come, first serve. Like when you're buying tickets, the online buying opens up at X hour and it closes at X hour. In this case, we could have a time up there. It's like it's open from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Whatever you want to make that time, and just a time slot.
Any other council people?
I also don't like the lottery system. I feel like it lends itself to lots of like second guessing and people being like, oh, there were this many in favor, or this many on this topic, and only this on this topic, and we have to prove that it was randomized. Like I don't see that being useful. I would be willing to. I guess I appreciate the information that you're giving about having, if using under the emergency exceptions of the Open Meetings Act, like creating another time for that. So I appreciate that. Like with that and with if there are ways that we can receive other comments, like outside of the meeting or in anticipation of the meeting, I would also feel like that would kind of satisfy what I'm getting at, which is, it would satisfy that and other situations. But that's my main concern, is that I feel like there might be a time when we want to create more as a group, but I think that those two things satisfy it. So thank you.
Go ahead, Councilmember Dugan.
So maybe I'm just getting really into the weeds here, but if you have a 1 hour time limit but you have a lot of people make 1 minute, but you limit the window that they can make a comment, that, hey, the comment closes at 7:30, but you had a lot of people who had extra comments here, or you limit it to an hour, how do you know when that hour is up? So I'm almost thinking that, hey, you can say, we limit it to just the first 30 commenters, or the first 35 commenters instead of a time frame, because then it's specific on that, and you're not really limited to a specific 60 minutes, and it's the chair's decision whether we have another person or two persons because of the time limit. And you just say, hey, the first 30 people or the first 35 people get comments, and boom, and there is no closing time, but there's an opening time. So it opens at, I'm just saying, 6 p.m. and the first 35 people.
Can I get council staff to chime in on administratively what difference that would be for you all?
One of the difficulties we've had is in predicting the number of people that can testify during that 1 hour. And we're thinking that people will self-govern more if they know we want to use our time wisely. So a lot of times people in some other hearings that we've had have cut their comments short. They say what they have to say and then they move on and let someone else speak. So that gives them more freedom to govern how they want to spend the time. They have a maximum of 2 minutes, but they don't have to spend that whole time. That was one thing we were thinking of.
The other thing I would like to propose is kind of the Roberts Rules of Order, which is probably more administrative and us internally advising. I think for me, I would like to hear input on policy, and I'm willing to go to the mat debating policy with anyone who's doing so in good faith. I would like to eliminate personal selection and targeting during comment, and require that public comment address the entire body without singling out individuals. Katie, tell me where I'm violating something.
Hey, let's go back to your standing on the sidewalk. Your First Amendment rights are the most protected, and part of that is people saying terrible things about elected officials. And if you think about the elected official that you dislike the most, and think about it, you losing the opportunity to say to that elected official what you really thought about them. That, unfortunately, is one of the bedrocks of the First Amendment. However, that does not mean that individuals can personally threaten or intimidate or truly impair an elected official or a city staff member's safety. So if there's physical aggression, if there are comments made about an elected official's family or where they live, or threats to those elected officials, then that would be a line we could draw. But unfortunately, part of the First Amendment is people's ability to say really terrible things about elected officials.
Could I ask a?
Yes.
Katie, help me with this, and you and I talked a little bit about this the other day. One of the fundamental principles in Robert's Rules of Order is that the legislative body functions as a group. And they do this at the legislature. They require that the people addressing them address the group through the chair. And they don't entertain individuals asking specific questions of people at the dais. So it's something that we haven't consistently addressed, but we typically have said we're here as a body to take your comment, and we would appreciate it if you would address the body through the chair. Now, that doesn't mean they can't say terrible things about 7 council members and a mayor, or 3 council members, or anything like that, but just the concept that the addressing needs to be to the chair and the body, as opposed to, I'm here to talk to council member or legislator so-and-so.
Yeah, I am aware that the legislature operates that way. I think one of the tricky things, and I feel like a broken record, but part of it is the type of public comment we have, which is general comment. So when the legislature is accepting comments, it's more like a statutory public hearing where they're saying, we want to hear your comments about this bill. So it's a different type of a comment forum. I do think that the council could say in their rules that the preference and the encouragement is to address the entire body. I don't think that somebody addressing an individual council member or elected official is a reason to stop their comment, but it can be part of the rules of decorum that we are encouraging everyone to abide by. Another thing to think about is many of these individuals are each of your individual constituents. So that constituent may want to say, you know, I'm a constituent of District 3, Councilmember Wharton, this is really important for my district, and you are my elected official, and we don't want to restrict that type of communication with the elected officials.
Okay, and I'd like to gather some more information about that and coordinate with you some more, because a lot of the other cities that we looked at did have that as a standard, just based on the concept that they're convened as a body. So we'll gather more and coordinate.
Great.
Thank
And
you.
I'm happy to think it through as well.
Madam Chair.
And I'm happy that we are processing this in full public view so that every constituent may see access to all of our deliberations. And I think it's really important to point out that this is not something we're trying to sneak in. This is something we are committed to, and the city is committed to being a paragon of protecting the First Amendment. So thank you for your guidance, allowing us bad ideas and offering us both administrative and legal ways to protect all sorts of attributes of our job. Thank you. Councilmember Pui.
Just a quick question. So I think we're just going through a lot of ideas here. Another city I was researching today talked a little bit about disturbance and members of the public that won't follow the rules. And the meeting rules basically explain what the process is to deal with that, which is, ask to comply, if not, ask to leave, if not, then we ask for someone to remove the individual from the meeting. And the rule went even a step further than that, saying that this person may not be allowed to comment on the next meeting if they behave like that, and it is a rule that they have for 30 days. So this person may be able to come back if they comply, but then if they don't, and if this happens again, then they have another 30 days of no allowing to exercise that right. How is that something that we can potentially do? Is that something that, what are your thoughts?
That is the first that I have heard of that concept. And, I'm probably always going to fall on the most protective First Amendment side of things. And so I'm not saying that a city is doing something wrong when they do that, and I don't know the facts. But what I will say is I'm going to go back to the analogy of the sidewalk. If somebody exercises their First Amendment, goes too far, disrupts an event on the sidewalk, does their time, comes back the next day, they're allowed to exercise their First Amendment right the next day too. And so I just want to be very careful about impairing people's First Amendment rights. But Councilmember, you are absolutely right that Utah law allows Salt Lake City to remove somebody who is disruptive and seriously impairs the operations of a meeting. So if someone does that day, they can be removed. If they come back and appear to be doing that again, they can certainly be removed again. I don't know about the 30-day time limit, though.
And there are legal consequences for that too, right, in Utah?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for those clarifications. Okay, I would like to get us to a place of action on this. Again, the consensus seems to be around limiting the public comment either by time restriction or by comment number restriction. Does anyone want to lead us in their preference? Should we just go down and Councilmember Young, what's your preference?
I'm unclear what step, because was staff recommending a preference for time or number? Because that's where I got a little lost.
We don't have a strong preference, but we had focused on the amount of time.
So their preparation has been around limiting by time, not by comment number.
So then my recommendation would be we start with time. And then if we need to revisit it based on whatever the administrative burdens may be or the practical challenges, that we could revisit in terms of.
Councilmember Pui?
You know me, I'm gonna throw it. So what if we did both? We did, a specific amount of time, or let's say 60 minutes or 30 public comments. So then we are limiting ourselves to
whichever
30.
comes first?
Yeah.
Because if we're speaking practically, you would never get 30 comments in 60 minutes just by virtue of how long it takes someone to unmute, walk up to a microphone.
But to that is also some people are short on their comment, right? So I think that maybe just putting the guardrail time and amount of people might actually give us.
Council staff, how does that impact your life?
We really need one or the other.
Okay.
You need one or the other. So.
Which would you go with time then, based on with like Councilmember Young?
Time.
Okay. Councilmember Wharton?
Time.
Councilmember Lopez Chavez?
It would be time for the general constrict. I was going to mention, I'm also curious if there's other policies with our warnings and decorum rules that we could look at that don't affect the expression of First Amendment rights, but to have very strict parameters around a first warning, a second warning, and then effectuating to maintain safety. So I think, this is what Katie Lewis was talking about, is that we need to look at this as a lens of safety for constituents and the body of staff.
Thank you. Councilmember Dugan?
Councilmember Young, time, and then if we need to, we can adjust after that point with time.
I've heard 1 hour time limit suggested. Is there anyone else who has any other suggestion? It appears that we have consensus around, do we have to straw poll this, or is this casual conversation enough?
I think that casual conversation enough. We do have a resolution prepared for your formal meeting.
Okay.
But it'll be based on this conversation.
Okay. So I am hearing that today we are comfortable on limiting public comment to 1 hour. Are there any other parameters that we are wanting to endorse today as part of amending our public comment rules?
Chair, I just wanted to ask again, with the parameters in regards to our rules of decorum, would that be included in this resolution?
Go ahead, Cindy.
Sorry, do you mean the 1, 2,
warnings,
or 3
yes.
warnings? That's really never been a rule of any sort. You could discuss that here, what your expectation is. But I don't know how to put that in a rule. I guess you could say, because it depends on scale, I guess, but I guess you could say that you want people to have 2 warnings or something. I don't.
And if I may, I just wanted to make sure that we have a reasonable practice that doesn't favor any speech or any type of identity or issue, but that we just have a strict constraint and parameters that can be transparent so that the audience knows how to prepare, and if there is violation, you know, the formal steps that'll take place to adjourn.
Thank you. Councilmember Wharton?
I think that we can, you know, put as many rules and specifics in place that you could put an infinite number, and it's going to come down at some point to the discretion of whoever's chairing about whether or not, you know, to consider something a disruption or not. You know, we are, as you've told us when we've had this conversation before, that anybody in the body is welcome to like point out to the chair, you know, I think that that violates our rules of decorum, or anything like that. So I guess I worry about like trying to make it too much of a formula, because I think that might make it might produce the opposite of what we're trying to achieve here. I think it probably has to, a lot of this is going to be kind of cultural, and what we establish as a norm and as a practice for what we consider a violation and what we don't. I do think there, though, with the decorum part on the, you know, addressing the body versus individuals, I want to know more about that, because if we can have rules of decorum, it's a little bit different than a sidewalk, right? So how do you say that are our rules of decorum only suggestions?
Thank you for that question.
Thank you.
It is true that a council meeting is different than the sidewalk. So you can put in different rules because you are in a meeting, because your government interest is different. And one of them is running an efficient and orderly and not disrupted meeting. Mm-hmm. So you may be able to put in rules that would be different or stricter than what you would have on a sidewalk. Whether that can rise to the level of requiring addressing the entire body rather than one elected official is something I'd like to put a little bit of thought into.
Okay, I just, from recent experience, it feels to me like, you know, coming and saying, let's say I'm disgusted with the council and the mayor for whatever for making this decision, or I'm ashamed of the council and the mayor, and I'm ashamed of my council member. To me, that feels different than saying this council member, like, this is your fault, or this is you, and we should all be mad at you. You're the, you know, to me that feels like a different kind of because that sort of invites more breaches of decorum, right? Like, let's start throwing out and pointing fingers at individuals, as opposed to let's have like a discussion about the policies of the city or the direction of the city. So I don't know, I'm interested to know more. I also want to err on the side of being more permissive of or more open to First Amendment comments or freedom of expression. But to me, that feels like the root of a lot of problems that we're having.
Okay, so I want to give Katie a chance to respond. The next time-bound thing that we have is the advise and consent on the agenda. So I would like to leave 45 minutes for our last item, which is the CDBG funds. So I'm going to allow Katie a quick response, Councilmember Pui, and if there's anything absolutely urgent. Otherwise, it feels like the practical takeaway from here is that tonight we are going to implement a limit of a 1 hour time frame for public comment. All right? Katie first.
I'll just very quickly address Councilmember Wharton's, which I think we are seeing across the nation, which is a breakdown in civil discourse that ultimately leads to political violence. And to the extent that we can identify a legitimate governmental interest, which is safety, and prohibiting that leading to public violence, and violence against elected officials and city employees, then, that's a creative pathway that I'm happy to explore.
Councilmember Pui.
I think that I would like that maybe the motion tonight also includes, if we feel comfortable as a body, to direct the council staff to create an avenue to expand video public comment. Basically is asking the staff to come up with the system to allow for that. So it's both.
Yeah, I like that.
So I hope that we can actually do that. Obviously, we'll like to suggestions to you because it's probably technical difficulties to do that, but I know it's possible. I wonder, for how long, how heavy the videos could be, and all of these that are important internally, but I would like that to be included in the motion tonight.
Thank you. Council staff, do you have what you need from us? Katie, are we in danger, or you feel at peace with where we've landed?
I'm here to support you in this process.
All right. Council, I would like us to take 5 minutes. I need a potty break, and if we do this right, this takes us into closed session without a lot of time. So 5 minutes at 56. If we can have our CDBG at the table ready to go, we'll be here ready for you. Thank you.
57. I'm sorry we said 56. But we are back, and we are going to return on the agenda to item number 3, which is fiscal year 24-25 funding allocations for one-year action plan for the Community Development Blocks Grant and other federal grants. This is one of the funnest and most frustrating things we get to do in any year, so I'm very excited. I have Ben Lidke, Council Policy Analyst at the table, as well as Mayor Erin Mendenhall, Tony Milner, and Heather Royale. So Ben, I'll turn the time over to you.
Before I go into an introduction and overview, I'm going to turn it over to the mayor to introduce some of her funding recommendations.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Madam Chair. This is my 5th year as mayor presenting my recommendations for the city's annual HUD Community Development Grant funding. The city's annual allocation from HUD is an opportunity for us to provide direct services to our city's residents who are low to moderate income, vulnerable, and historically underserved populations and neighborhoods. The HUD funding that the city will receive this year for FY 24-25 includes the regular CDBG, ESG, home, and HOPWA annual funding, along with one-time funding through the American Rescue Plan and the CARES Act COVID relief funding, which are the new home ARP and recaptured CDBG CV grants. The following recommendation advance many of the city's goals listed in our current 5-year consolidated plan with HUD, which are affordable housing, homeless services, building a resilient community, behavioral health, and transportation. The city will be starting the public process this year for our next 5-year HUD consolidated plan, and that will run from 2025 to 2029, of which council will be an integral part of that process. This year, the recommendations that you see include programs such as Assist Inc.'s Emergency Home Repair and Accessibility Program, which helps seniors and individuals with disabilities rehabilitate their homes to be safer and more accessible. Odyssey House's Bus Pass program to help individuals reintegrating into society with access to public transit. Soap to Hope's Harm Reduction Street Outreach to provide crisis intervention and wraparound services to our community's unsheltered individuals, and Catholic Community Services Kitchen Academy, chef trainer and employment and life skills programs, helping current and former homeless individuals get into gainful employment, and Legal Aid's domestic violence assistance. It's called Bridge the Gap program, which will literally bridge the gap between domestic violence victim assistance and the domestic relations program. I'm even happier to report that some of the recommendations advance the goals that I've set out for my administration for 2024, such as another ICAST project that you'll notice is recommended for funding under CDBG, which is a solar installation program to help bring efficient renewable energy to multi-unit housing within the city. And there's also funding recommended for several housing programs that aim to provide new homeownership opportunities and improve long-term affordability throughout the city. So I present these recommendations to you for your review and your final recommendations, or determinations rather. This also begins our public comment process with a public hearing scheduled during the formal meeting tonight, and I hope that residents of Salt Lake City and the applicants will weigh in and provide their feedback on these recommendations. It's always a moving public hearing when we do CDBG and all of the other HUD funding. My appreciation goes out to our CDCIP Resident Advisory Board for their many, many volunteer hours in reviewing and scrutinizing the applications that the city received for this funding, and for providing their meticulously derived scores for this limited funding. You have all of that review in your packet. I wish, of course, as I know you do, that we could fund all of the applicants and the full range of amazing and valuable activities and programs, but these tough decisions were put before the board and then me, and now to you, the council, to finalize. My thanks to the city's Housing Stability Division staff for facilitating this annual process and providing their technical expertise on these funds. Thank you, Council Chair, and I look forward to seeing the impact that these funds will make in our communities.
Thank you, Mayor. Before we go any further, I would like to disclose I am currently contracted in my non-council work to execute the strategic planning process at YWCA Utah. There's no financial enrichment to me, but it's just a relationship that I want everyone to be aware of. All right, and with that, I'll turn the time back over. Let's begin the fun discussions.
Before we get going, does everybody have a copy of the funding log? If anybody needs one, we have extras on the table in the corner. Okay. As the mayor mentioned, the public hearing is scheduled for tonight. You may remember also holding a public hearing back in the fall. The public hearing in the fall was a general needs hearing to hear from the community. The public hearing tonight is about the specific funding recommendations to advance those community needs. So both are required by HUD, just wanted to differentiate the two. Can we get page 1 of the staff report up on the screen? I've got a few tables and charts to show the council. This is on page 1, and it shows the 4 ongoing grants that the council reviews every year. And apologies, whenever we talk about federal grants, there are a lot of acronyms. At the end of the staff report, we have a glossary of all those acronyms if you need a reminder or a reference. What the table shows, and this happens most years, is the requested funding is significantly more than the funding available. In total, almost $18 million was requested, $8.5 million is available. And you can see the breakout for each of the 4 ongoing grants. In particular, ESG, the Emergency Solutions Grant, this is targeted on helping individuals and families experiencing homelessness. It is the most competitive grant, and it has the least amount of funding. That has held true every year I've done this. As the mayor mentioned, in addition to these 4 ongoing grants, we also have 2 one-time federal grants related to pandemic response. There's $1.5 million authorized under ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act, and the council previously identified using those $1.5 million for rental assistance. So all of the applications for that funding is for rental assistance. The other one-time federal grant funding was authorized by the CARES Act. The council originally approved all of those funds in 2021. The $287,000 is returning to the council because the organizations that received the funding did not spend that amount. So it's being recaptured, brought back to the council so it can be put to new uses instead of returning it to the federal government. Can we jump to page 5? This one has a chart of CDBG, Community Development Block Grants, and this shows the annual funding that goes to the housing category of CDBG. And the reason I'm calling out this one is there's a clear upward trend. So several years ago, the council said housing is a priority for CDBG funding, and I wanted to show you that the funding amounts going to this category has increased year over year. So your policy is being implemented in the funding levels. We're not getting more CDBG money. More of the CDBG money as a percentage is going to housing. Next on page 10, this is a chart of HOPWA funding, which is Housing Opportunities for Persons with AIDS. This is the largest funding from the federal government to support the housing and social services needs of people with AIDS. It has seen a huge increase in funding. The other ongoing grants are basically flat over the last decade. Hopwa has seen significant increases. This is because the federal formula determining how much money goes to cities and counties adjusted in a phased approach over several years to better match the funding to where people with the virus are living. And Salt Lake City has more of them than other places in the state, which is why our award has increased. The funding formula has been fully implemented. We don't expect the funding to continue going up. There were a few years where Hopwa funding requests were less than the available funding. That is unusual. That is not the case this year. The applicants and the community service providers have worked, especially with technical assistance from housing stability staff, to understand that this funding stream was increasing, and they've increased their programs in response. The last visualization is on page 11. This is a chart of eviction filings in the 3rd District Court. That's Matheson Courthouse across State Street. Now, any eviction filing in the county can be filed in 3rd District Court. This is not Salt Lake City specific data, but Salt Lake City has a disproportionate share of renters. According to the Gardner Policy Institute, since 2010, the amount fluctuates, but about 25 to 30% of all renters in the county are in Salt Lake City. So to an extent, you can try to generalize the county data to the experience of renters being evicted in the city. What you see in the chart is relatively stable evictions from 2016 to 2020. They then go way down because of the pandemic eviction moratorium. That moratorium was pulled back. The eviction filings spike. A second eviction moratorium was implemented, and evictions go way down again. Since then, there's been a steady increase in evictions, and where we currently are over the last year is the eviction filings are higher than the 4-year average before the pandemic. So I wanted to highlight this because it's kind of hard to get Salt Lake City specific eviction data, but also since the council chose $1.5 million for rental assistance, it looks like there is an elevated need. That's it for the staff report charts and tables. A couple reminders. There's a minimum grant award of $30,000. And this was selected by the council several years ago as a way to balance the cost of administering the program. There's compliance reporting, financial tracking, all of that comes with a cost. Balancing those administration costs with the benefit of delivering those services and projects to the community. So when you're looking, especially in the public services category of CDBG, we don't go below the $30,000. A couple points on the applications. On page 3 of the staff report, there are 2 applications that were disqualified this year. They are both in the public services category of CDBG. Also on page 3 is the list of 5 applicants who are returning for the same program that received funding in prior years, but those 5 are not recommended for funding this cycle. And then I wanted to call out attachment 4. If you want to see a list of all the applications from an organization, you can see that in attachment 4. So if you notice an applicant has 6 applications across almost all the grants, and you want to see all those applications in one place with the amount they requested in total, what they're recommended to be funding, you can find that in attachment 4. HUD has not confirmed the final award amounts, so we are operating with funding estimates. Now, the experience over the last several years is the estimates are pretty close to what the final award amounts are. Sometimes we do find out later in March or April what the final award amounts will be. We're not there yet. If we do not find out before the council's vote, which is scheduled for April 16th, the Resident Advisory Board has recommended contingencies about what to do if there is more or less funding than estimated. You can find those on the second to last page of the funding log. And those are adopted with the funding awards so that the administration knows how to adjust the funding amounts. The council does have final decision-making authority of the award amounts as well as the uses. That's everything for my intro. What the council typically does is reviews the funding log page by page. We can put attachment to the funding log up on the screen. Would you like to proceed page by page, Madam Chair, or another way?
Council, how would you like to do this? I mean, the page by page is thrilling every year, so I'm up for it. All right, no one needs anything different? Let's do that, please.
Okay. So the very first one is the administration category. You'll see this in each of the grants. HUD allows the city to use a portion of the grant award to cover the costs of administering the program, usually salaries for employees. And the category after that is housing. This one continues on to the next page, but we'll pause for questions or if there are any particular items council members wanted to call out as a priority where you would like to look at shifting funding toward. Page 1.
Anyone? Anyone? Okay, looks like we're clear to...
Okay, so page 2, this continues the housing category of CDBG.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
So I'm looking at line item number 6 and number 8. I know the line item number 6, which is the fix the bricks, the board recommended funding of 220, the mayor's does not. And then line item number 8, the shared equity program, the board didn't recommend it and the mayor did. And so I have just a couple questions on those. On number 6, the fix the brick, I know we have a big backlog on houses that need to be fixed. Is there also, is that money already set aside for that side? So if we were to fund the fix the brick, this would just be put into a savings account that could take years to get to that funding. Is that, how does that work with that money?
So the original backlog is already funded through FEMA. The CDBG funding requested, if approved, would be in addition to those homes already selected, because as you know, we have a wait list of about 4,000 that we're trying to work through. So it would be in addition to, and it wouldn't necessarily go into a savings account because you may also remember CDBG has a strict timeliness requirement. So our staff would get working on selecting and funding projects very quickly.
Okay, so this funding could be actually used fairly quickly. And maybe I missed it, but the cost to do one home on the fix the brick, is it, I wanted to say it was 30,000, but maybe there was a big gap. I think that, what's the cost for a one home average?
It used to be significantly more. We have opened up a competitive bid process for those, and the cost has come down quite a bit. And so it's somewhere between 20 and 25,000, depending on the type of structure.
And we do that on an equity basis or income level to fix the brick?
For traditional fix the bricks funded through FEMA, no, there's no income requirements or other component to that. It's based on the structure, not the household composition. For CDBG, because of the HUD requirements, it would be geared towards low income households.
Okay, and then thank you on that side of the house, because on the shared equity, when I look at that, and I read the report, it was, we could possibly buy one home, possibly, because the cost, I just read the median house is 700-something thousand in Salt Lake City. So this 220 may not be even enough to afford one home in that case. Is that true?
That's correct. It would be used in part with other funding that we're seeking at the moment, and part of that is in the policy conversation that we'll be having in the near future.
Okay, all right. So those are my just questions, because I look at those two and go, I may lean towards the board position, but I'm still thinking through. So thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Dugan. Anyone else, any questions on page number 2?
I have a question, Chair. Do we have any programs similar to Fix the Bricks that as well accomplish this, that we'll be funding, it looks like seismic retrofits and upgrades for low-income to moderate housing?
So we have other rehabilitation programs, but Fix the Bricks is the only one specific to seismic upgrades.
Okay, and then in regards to the shared equity program, this is the first of its kind as well, correct? We have not exercised that or funded this previously?
We have funded this previously. It's also commonly referred to as the Community Land Trust.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that's just really quickly for other funding sources that possibly fund Fix the Bricks. The city has put in another application to FEMA for their BRIC program, and we're currently working on a FEMA pre-disaster mitigation appropriations request as well to diversify the funding and to serve more households with the Fix the Bricks program.
Councilmember Pui?
Oh, thank you.
You had a follow-up?
Apologies. I was just going to say, in District 4 in particular, we have a lot of naturally occurring affordable housing that needs this type of upgrade. So it's something that's important to me and my constituency.
Yeah, so I've been talking about the Fix the Bricks for a little while. I believe didn't we added some funds? Last year we added some funds. And how far are we on that list? I know that it was taking us a little while to go through that list, and some people have been waiting there for 4+ years.
Yes, so 2 years ago, council set aside $84,000 in general fund to go towards eligible households who were 100% AMI or below. So as we've been going through the list with the FEMA funds, we've been qualifying households who do fit that category. And all of last year, it was spent out. It was basically all of 84,000 was spent out. Right now, as they're going through the applications, they've basically spent about 30,000 of that.
So basically, I think that maybe one of the points that Councilmember Dugan was trying to make, and correct me if I'm wrong, is 240,000 potentially could be 10-ish houses retrofitted in case of, to keep them a little safer for an earthquake. And, the 220,000 in item number 8 won't even be one house, and I guess outweighing the pluses and the cons, that certainly item number 6 seems is still a high priority for me, and I want to make sure that we are eating away on that list. And do you happen to know how many people are waiting in list for Fix the Bricks?
Over 4,000. And we're
4,000.
currently working with IMS to reach out to all of those on that list and see if they're still interested, if they're still owned by the same original applicant, so that we can maybe clean that up a little bit and potentially eventually reopen it. But as of right now, it's just over 4,000.
4,000. And we have the application still open, or you said that it's closed?
It's closed, yeah.
So, okay, interesting.
Those all came in within the first year of the program being offered, and so it filled up quickly.
Anyone else? Can we move on to page 3?
The neighborhood improvements category is subject to the target area. Attachment 3 is a map of the target area. It's most of the residential area on the west side, from 300 North to 2100 South, and from Redwood Road over to State Street. And then there's a notch cut out for part of West Downtown.
Council? I feel like we have this conversation every year, but is there a reason why we keep this in the house? And are just other people not applying to do this? I know we talked about, doesn't someone else do a similar program in the private sector? Or you all make the grants to the people who do it. You don't administer. Thank you. That's the clarification. My brain finally caught up. Thank you. So this is not for us to execute the program. It's for you all to find the private providers in the community who do it and then be a pass-through for the funds.
So the facade program, otherwise called the Neighborhood Business Improvement Program, is administered through the city.
Okay.
Put out for competitive applications, a committee reviews, and then selects the recipients.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Quick question on this program. I've seen incredible changes on small businesses because of this. Have we spent the money every year, or at least the last year, all the money allocated to this?
Yeah, the last 2 years, they've done a really good job of expending funds. We do occasionally extend, it's not a contract because the city doesn't enter into a contract with itself, but we do occasionally extend beyond an initial 1 year, and it for about 1.5 years, because they're construction projects, it does tend to take a little bit longer. But the last 2 years, significant spending in the program.
And a follow-up to that, the facade improvements, I would like to know what constitute an improvement, because I remember in the past there was a few businesses in my district that I'm starting to remember the files loading, but they apply for an improvement to the front of their business, but it didn't quite qualify for the definitions that the city had. So I'm trying to remember that. I would like to know more information about how you select and what is included on the application, what is the requirement, and if there is a wiggle room there to maybe to expand some of that.
Yeah, we're happy to provide that. And I also want to put a plug to the council and to the public as well, as we have our website updated with this program for all the years that it's been funded, and it's on a map that basically says which business. It's really cute. There's a before and after picture, and it says exactly what the improvements were.
Thank you. Are we ready to go on to the next category? Okay.
The public services category, this one has a maximum limit of 15%, and the recommendations already include up to the 15%. This is also one of the most competitive categories with the most applications. The approach has been, if you wanted to fund an application that has no funding or wanted to add funding to an application, it would be shifted away from another application in that category.
Do we have grant reports from the previous year for people who were granted?
We do.
So I know I continue to think it's really important to get money to the people most closely associated with the communities that they're helping. And in that vein, Salt Lake American was a priority last year for me. And I'd be curious to see the grant report to make sure that sometimes grants can be onerous to nonprofits if they don't have the infrastructure to spend them wisely and or spend them strategically and do the reporting back. I'd be curious to see that grant report, because that's potentially one that I would really like to advocate for, and to spread the peanut butter a little thinner.
So in terms of all of the applicants that were funded previously, we can provide that if that's something the council wants. I actually received an update. I suspected this might be a question. I received an update on Salt Lake American earlier today, and as of their most recent invoice, they have fully expended the funds that they were awarded last year.
All on qualifying expenses?
Yep. And the grant administrator that works with them says they've been great to work with. They have been really receptive to feedback, and their quarterly reports look really great. So
heads up, friends, I'm going to try to spread the peanut butter to Boys and Girls Club and to Salt Lake American. Showing my hand here.
So that is number 16, the Salt Lake American, and then the Boys and Girls Club is number 2.
Council members, anyone else? I have to say, like, kudos to the grant makers. Like, you all really did, like, pretty well spread the peanut butter. Like, the number of $30,000 grants and trying to make sure everyone got some, that's pretty impressive. Yes, sir.
On number 14, just the Odyssey House, the bus passes, and I applaud, getting bus passes because that's probably their only means of transportation. So I'm assuming this is a bus and a tracks pass, not including the front runner, but 47,000. What's how many people is that? Is that because I don't even know what a annual bus pass is, but I'm just wondering is
It's a lot of money.
UTA participating in that? Is it are they splitting it, matching us? How we work in here? Because I think it's an awesome program, but just seeing how many people are getting bus passes and how we could expand that in some way.
No, good question. They should be getting, because of the clientele that they're serving, they should be getting the discounted passes so we can follow up with the exact amount.
And then if they have kids, then they should already be getting a pass too. The kids and themselves, at least one of them.
I also would be interested, this feels like something that we could help with during general budget, that maybe if there's peanut butter here that we want to spread to other things, we could do a legislative intent.
Right, because we have the Hive Pass program too, and we have a couple different programs here, and I'm just looking at that funding and that number. Is that the right number? Can we multiply that number with UTA, or are there some nonprofits that are or philanthropy organizations for bus passes?
We'd be happy to follow up and get a estimate for you.
Okay, thanks.
I just wanted to comment on line 18 with Shelter the Homeless for the Gail Miller Resource Center and Geraldine E. King. Providing security is essential, and so I'd like my peanut butter to stay there, please.
Well, so a future meeting is where you're going to make these pitches, right?
I mean, I have preliminary numbers here, being the grant queen of the council. I do have preliminary places where we could take it, but I want to hear everyone before I propose anything. Anyone else?
We have done this, and it was, maybe I'm going to speak for myself, very confusing, and it lasted like weeks and weeks of discussion. May I suggest that we continue going through the list and all of us continue making notations on what things may or may not want to change, and then we have one meeting where we all put it out in the table and we fight it out and see what happens, and we can make a decision more easily that way. I don't know, maybe it was
you
just
want a
very
cage
confusing.
match is what I'm hearing.
It was just so confusing to keep track of the many changes. If we can focus it on maybe a meeting.
Well, and to my colleagues that are thinking about suggesting changes, I also agree in spreading the peanut butter. This feels to me like you've spread it more than you typically do. And I think we can all acknowledge that there is a point where if you spread the peanut butter anymore, that won't taste it. It's not really a peanut butter sandwich anymore. The integrity of the peanut butter is...
As someone who has made dimes do the work of dollars because she writes grants and service to the community is contingent upon people being good to her and making sure that her colons were in the right place, I'm telling you, a little bit of peanut butter, especially in this climate, is better than no peanut butter, especially when we're talking about general operating expenses.
But I need to know that it's...
We're not making sandwiches, we're contributing to a meal.
Right. But I want to know... the point is I want to make sure that, like, the spread is worth what we're getting, and where we're already acknowledging that we've spread it pretty thin, more so than we typically do. I just want to know that that makes sense, and we're getting the most bang for our buck, if that makes also the most bang for our peanut butter spread per cubic centimeter. Thank you.
We're really killing this metaphor up here, but I respect that you're able to do so. So are we in agreement with Councilmember Pui that proposed adjustments will wait until a future date? We're good with that? Okay, then let's keep moving.
So then
I
the
think we're
next
on 6, unless we're done with the public services category.
category starts on 8. If you want to go page by page in the category, I kind of jumped because my stuff was all on different pages. Anyone else have anything else in public services they want to talk about?
I'm just interested in my number 20, the YMCA, the domestic violence and services there. That didn't get funded, but again, back to the whole comment, we had to make some cuts here, and I'm just really like to look at that, but I haven't really delved into any details on how we would spread it. Go ahead. Sorry.
Just on that note too, Ludke's report about they were recommended for other funding for related to repairs to their residential unit.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Still aches when someone doesn't get general operating though. Like capital campaigns as a nonprofit are easier to run. No one wants to fund your general operating. So my heart still aches for that.
I was just going to make comment on line 25 with the Green Team program. This is an incredible program that's been rolled out by Wasatch Community Gardens that finds women that are facing homelessness or experiencing housing insecurity and teaches them work readiness and training and pays them livable wages. So even though it's cut, I hope we look at different opportunities outside of this. But I think this is essential, right? We want to find different pathways for individuals that are housing insecure and actually put them in housing. And Wasatch Community Gardens has done really well to operate in a way that perpetuates housing and job training facilitation. So I just see this as a great investment for their request.
All right, I think we're safe to move on to the next category.
And that would be page 9. It's the Emergency Solutions Grant category. And this one is split into part 1 and part 2. It doesn't happen every year, but this year, every applicant in ESG is recommended to receive funding.
That's a peanut butter glob. That's a spoonful. That wasn't really spread. Anyone, any comments? I think we're safe to move on to the next one.
Next one, we're moving on to the Home Investment Partnership Grant. It's page 11.
Anyone have any input on this? I'm a little nervous about the down payment assistant programs not getting as much attention, especially if we keep pushing home ownership in all of our zoning initiatives, which is something we should do. But I mean, if you look at the eviction rate, like who has down payments saved up, even if we make home ownership available? And these are tensions that we need to be balancing. And so to see those two down payment assistant programs unfunded makes my stomach turn a bit.
I think it's important to note that, NeighborWorks is getting all their funding for the similar. I love their work, number 9, and the second page. But yes, it is something very needed for sure.
That's a home repair program. Oh, down payment assistance, sorry, and home rehab. Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
All right, it looks like you satisfied our questions on this topic. I think we can move on. I want to honor that we're getting into the last few minutes, but I don't feel bad asking people to wait 5 minutes over because council has done far worse in the past.
That takes us to HOPWA. That's on page 13. And like ESG, this year, every applicant in HOPWA is recommended to receive some funding.
Any questions on this? It's exciting to see all of these get some measure of funding. All right, and then we have the
There's two left. These are the one-time federal funds related to the pandemic. The first one is Home ARPA, and this is the $1.5 million the council identified for rental assistance. And every one of the applications is recommended to receive funding.
That's exciting. Anyone have any concerns? Requests? All right.
Just general question. They're not having any problems giving this money up, using this money. These organizations on the rental assistance.
Most of these organizations have applied for rental assistance from the ongoing grants, and my understanding is that they have been able to spend the vast majority of those funds every year. So okay. I think the answer is yes. I would defer to Tony and Heather.
And again, your question is about fully spending. We can provide analysis of fully spend out, but then also just want to clarify too, with the Home ARP program, it's a very specialized population. So some of it that they're going to be doing is going to be new qualified populations that they really have to target on. And these funding goes through
2030.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? All right, our last category.
The last category is the CARES Act funding that the council had awarded back in 2021. These are the $287,000 of unspent funds that have been recaptured. There was only one application. It is not recommended for funding by the advisory board or the mayor. This is also a policy question in the staff report. If the council would like to consider going back out for an open and competitive process, see what applications are received, and then return to the council to make a final funding decision. Other options would be you could select a category similar to the $1.5 million for rental assistance. You could say, we want this $287,000 to go to housing assistance, and then have the administration come back with recommendations. A third option, you could ask the administration to go to the original awardees back in 2021 who were able to fully spend and ask if they could use additional funding and return to you with those options.
Is it possible to add it just to the public services category where there were so many eligible and good things that didn't get funded and lots of them only got 30? Is that possible?
So the short answer is yes, and we figured that you might ask that. I think we would want to reach out to all of those applicants and confirm whether or not their existing programs or applications would fit within the parameters of the CV funding.
Okay.
So you found more peanut butter then?
Yes, we're scraping the edge of the peanut butter jar, yes.
You found a lot of it seems like.
Yeah.
So can I just ask a question about this? For the one applicant who's there, they're not being recommended for funding. Can you just help me understand that? Like if we have money specific to a category, but we're not going to award it?
Sure, and this comes back to the review, both the review of the application and then an in-person interview that the CDC board did with this application and the applicant. They were concerned that it was the only applicant for the competitive funds, kind of one. 2, that it's a for-profit. 3, that the beneficiaries aren't the direct recipients. So this is an organization that basically helps small or in-home daycares with tools and training to kind of help build up their business, maybe take on more kids, hire more staff. But then that's a great service, but then the direct beneficiary isn't the local small business provider. So they had concerns about, those are kind of like a summary of just their main concerns. And so because of that, they felt very strongly not to put forward a recommendation.
Okay, that is helpful. Thank you for providing that.
Anyone else? All right. I have at least one other council person with me. All right, thank you. So tonight we'll have the public hearing on this. And then when is our final decision making on this?
April 16th is the last meeting in April is when the vote is scheduled. And that would allow time for the council's funding decisions to be shared with HUD. They have a strict system that has to be inputted, and it's not fast. And there's also a May deadline for the city to do that. If the city misses that deadline, then you can have to wait for congressional action, which I think that would be a month's delay. We've never done that before. So April 16th.
Okay, thank you all so much. All right, council, this isn't bad. That was only a 4-minute delay. The next thing on our agenda is to hear in an advise and consent capacity for the position of, sorry, I'm looking here, Chief Administrative Officer. So Jill Love, if you would come up to the table. Mayor, did you want to introduce? Thank you.
Thanks, Council. I'm so excited to sit here with Jill Remington Love, who is part of the reason I'm sitting here. And Jill served on the City Council, as you know, and represented District 5. She was the only woman on the City Council there in the final part of her 12 years of serving. And I couldn't bear the thought of an all-male City Council if Jill wasn't followed by another woman. So I've admired Jill's work as a constituent of hers over those 12 years, but mostly her way of leading people with a great deal of technical knowledge, systems thinking, but also heart and honesty. And she's a fantastic asset to the state of Utah that they then realized in her most recent career with the state, which she'll tell you about. And it's a fantastic opportunity for Salt Lake City to have Jill come back to this building and work here with us. So I just couldn't think of a better person in the state of Utah to bring to you for a Chief Administrative Officer, and I'm humbled that you want to do this work with us, Jill. I'll let you take it from here.
Do you have any questions for me? Do you just want me to introduce myself?
It feels only fair that we give you a few minutes to take the ball.
Great, thank you. The mayor is incredibly generous, and it is a little surreal to sit here with her, both of us having represented District 5 and being good friends over the years. And so this is an exciting opportunity for me. I've had the chance to talk to many of you, and some of you I've known for years in different capacities, and I'm just very excited to be coming to this position and being part of your team and the city's team and doing all that I can do to implement the mayor's vision for Salt Lake City and your vision for Salt Lake City. I think all of you are really lucky to have both a mayor and a chief administrative officer who've sat in your seats and understand the pressures you're under, and hopefully there's empathy that comes with that, and we can better serve you too as you're dealing with constituent issues in your neighborhoods. So,
thank you. Council, comments? Yes, Councilmember Young.
I would just like to join in the enthusiasm of having you and your expertise to be here and in serving in this role. I shared this with you, but I will in the greater public as well, that when I knew that there was an opportunity for you to potentially come to the city, I think my default was, we'd never get Jill, just based on, you know, the incredible expertise and leadership, and I'm sure many organizations that would benefit from that. But I am glad that you have brought it back here to Salt Lake City to be able to share that. One of the things that I admire about you, among the long list of possible attributes to highlight, is the fact that you have always paid attention to some of our communities that are most in need. And I am so grateful that you bring that lens to this important role, because there are so many different ways that you could view the work here at the city, and that you always bring that human aspect to the forefront in making sure that the city and then any of the entities you've led pay attention to the needs of those citizens who truly need us most. So thank you for that, and I look forward to being able to work with you in this new capacity.
Thank you, Councilwoman Young. Councilmember Dugan.
I would echo Councilmember Young's comments. I'm excited about you not only supporting the mayor, but also helping us out here navigate the system. We have a great team across the board, and like a good family, we don't always agree with each other, but we have great discussions about things. And so I think we are going to benefit from your experience as much as probably the mayor is going to benefit. So I appreciate the dialogue, the future dialogue we'll have. So thank you.
Council? I'm going to say I have been Jill's constituent because I ran an arts-based nonprofit, and Jill's leadership at the state put me under her purview. And then most recently, I was engaged to do the strategic plan for the Utah Department of Arts and Museums, which was one of the divisions under her leadership. And so one of the things that makes me excited about that is that I have watched her juggle not just a ton of balls, but a different variety, interpersonal, like dealing with 7 people on a council is going to be nothing after having 104 legislators that you got to deal with, like just a consolidation of personalities for sure. The way we strategically moved through such a diverse group's priorities, through so many different offerings to so many different constituencies. When you were statewide, you were making sure that the arts were available to people on reservations and also kids in our schools here in the city. And so that diversity of just skill sets and demands and making dimes do the work of dollars, we're in such a growth trajectory that we need someone who knows how to get things done, to be the boots on the ground, the place where the rubber meets the road, that allows the visions of the dreamers to become practical realities that pencil in a budget and pencil in capacity and bandwidth for our staff. And so I'm really excited for the personal experience I have under your leadership, and optimistic that the passion that you have for our city, welcome home by the way, will translate into this being a really, really good match for all of us and just inure to the benefit of all our constituents. So thank you for being willing.
I really appreciate that, and you have been an amazing leader in the arts community. I appreciate your final thought. It really is a full circle moment for me, and I do feel like I'm coming home.
Anyone else?
Just want to add my welcome back and congratulations to what everybody else has said. This is a huge, having you in this position, I think is a huge get for Salt Lake City. It's a huge asset, and I talked with you, and we've already engaged with each other on like some of the issues that I've seen, but that I have full confidence in your ability to help us improve upon. And I can't wait to get to work with you, and I'm so glad you're here. So welcome back.
All right, so this will be included in our consent agenda tonight, and then I hope you're ready to start work tomorrow. Is that? Okay, take a weekend, fine. All right, thank you. Oh, did you want to invite, I know you have your partner here. Did you want to introduce?
You know, really, this is his fourth tour of duty here, too. My husband, Perrin Love, just thanks. Yeah. I'll just share jokingly, I was quoted in the newspaper this last, I don't know, a year or so ago on the Flag Project, and some reader anonymously posted, that woman just moves from government job to government job. And it's become a meme in our family where my kids share it often. But I think all of those jobs have prepared me for this moment, so thanks.
Yeah, Jill, sorry, I should have said this earlier. I was so focused on talking about you, I forgot to mention myself. But I would feel bad if I didn't thank you, because you also are part of the reason why I'm here. I sat in that seat and you sat in this seat when I applied to be on the Human Rights Commission a long time ago, before I became a council member. And so I want to thank you for that as well. And I didn't want to forget to thank you. Thanks.
All right, thank you so much. All right, council, we are going to move on to board appointments. So both for the appeals hearing officer positions, we have Clayton Priest and Aaron McKnight. Are they, and you're here, both in person? If you'll both please come up to the table. So if you'd like to take just a moment, sorry, we're not going to be as in-depth with you. If you would like to take just a moment or two, tell us why you're interested in this and a little bit about yourself.
Go ahead. Yeah, so my name is Aaron McKnight. I grew up here in Utah, kind of all along the Wasatch Front, moved away for a couple years to work in Wisconsin and had to come back, miss my mountains. I've worked for a city in the city attorney's office for the past about 10 years. And for the past couple of years, I have been working, I either assigned to the planning and development department or otherwise just working with them. I answer questions regarding planning and development at least weekly, sometimes daily, and so it's an area of law that I practice quite frequently. I am interested in serving as an appeals hearing officer because I think it'll help me do my job at Midvale. I'm the Midvale Deputy City Attorney right now, and one thing that I do is represent the city and Midvale City and its appeals hearings, and being on the other side of the bench obviously will give me a different perspective and help me with that. I also aspire one day to be on the bench as a judge, and this would be a good experience for that as well.
Wonderful, thank you.
So my name is Clayton Priest. I'm also a local boy, grew up in different parts of the state, and I've been working pretty extensively with cities, and I represent them as outside counsel in land use appeals. And I've had the great opportunity to do that. One of the reasons I'm interested in the position is because of the judges that I've been in front of. And there are a lot of great judges, and I've seen the difference that they can make in making these decisions. Oftentimes, on land use decisions, it's the first time an individual engages with the court process. And in watching great administrative law judges as well as great district court judges in my practice, one of the things that I think they do best, the best judges do, is they have the ability to explain the law to lay people. Someone who's not intricately connected with the nomenclature, the rules, and how it works. And so when there are really great administrative law judges that are serving the public, it helps the public have confidence in the decisions that are being made, the land use planning staff, and having the opportunity to do that and provide that public service in engaging with the cities I've worked in. I appreciate that so much, and I think it'd be a great opportunity to try to provide those same services and those same things to the citizens of Salt Lake.
Thank you so much. Council, questions, comments? Thank you both so much for being willing to give your time and energy to the city in this capacity. You don't need to be present. You'll be on our consent agenda tonight, where you'll be approved formally for service. And thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, Craig Smith for the Airport Board. Same questions for you, sir.
Good evening, Council. My name is Craig Smith. I am an Erta City Councilman. Your airport in Tooele Valley sits inside of our city. I've served on the Tooele Valley Technical Advisory Board, and Brady Frederickson and Sean Nelson, your director and manager, have asked me to sit on the airport board. So here I am. Do you have any
Council,
questions
any
for
questions?
Thanks for coming to Salt Lake City to sit with us.
me? You're welcome.
I get to sit on that board as well, so I'm very excited to work alongside you.
Yeah, thank you.
I feel bad that you had to drive in from Tooele and we don't have any questions for you.
We could come up with some real quick.
Make it easy. Don't hurt my feelings.
Right. If an airplane leaves Tokyo. No, I appreciate that, having our airport, requires us to have locations in Tooele and in West Jordan. And so I think having that input is critical. And so I really appreciate your willingness to come and help make Salt Lake City and our airport a better provider for residents across Utah. So thank you for your service to Salt Lake City.
You're welcome. I hope that the partnership is good for everyone.
All right, like the men before you, you don't have to be present. You'll be on our consent agenda for formal approval, and I'll see you at the next meeting.
Thank you.
All right, and our last appointment, Brittany Dew to the Business Advisory Board.
Well, hello. I just want to thank you all so much for this opportunity. When I, heard about this and that I had the opportunity to potentially sit at this table, I was really excited about it. So I just want to say thank you. Been running a business for 16 years in Salt Lake City. It's grown. We started in Sugar House and moved to District 2 about 10 years ago, and seen the neighborhood change and more businesses, and I'm just really excited to join with the neighbors and continue to meet other businesses that are coming and businesses that are already there, and network and help each other in whatever ways we can, and just really see some growth and just success for everybody. Whatever I can offer, I'd love to be a part of it.
Madam Chair, I'm excited to join you joining the city and the advisory boards. I'm also excited to see more voices from the West Side on this commission. So I appreciate you, and I'm excited to see you influencing our city. And thank you for serving.
Appreciate it.
Brittany's venue is an excellent concert venue, should you ever need one. I know of which I speak.
Yeah, we've worked together, and I love it. It's really a community space, so I get to meet a lot of people, and that's the best part of my job.
Thank you for being willing to do this and for giving your time. You also don't have to be here tonight. You'll be on the consent agenda. We'll vote to approve you, and you'll be formally onboarded at that point.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, Council, that brings us to the end of our open items. We do have a closed session for the discussion of character, professional competence, or physical or mental health of an individual, and for attorney-client matters. Do I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move that we go into a closed session to discuss the character, professional competence, or physical or mental health of an individual, and to receive advice of counsel on attorney-client matters.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Wharton, a second by Dugan. I'll roll call this. Yeah. Yes. Pui?
Yes.
Wharton?
Yes.
Lopez Chavez?
Aye.
Dugan?
Yes.
Switched us up in the middle, and I'm a yes. That's unanimous. We are in closed session. When we return, we will be adjourned from work session.